Okay, guys. This has been a while since we've done an interview on the channel, and this one's been a long time in the making. I've been speaking to Bill from Fatback Band for a long, long time, on and off. He didn't understand what the hell I was trying to do, but he put me on to Gerry, Gerry Thomas, who I'm really, really happy to speak to, who is kind of one of the founding members of Fatback Band alongside Bill Summers and Jimmy Castor Bunch. And when I mentioned, we kind of, I'm saying what I said previously on the preface on the previous attempt, but when I mentioned that I was interviewing Gerry Thomas to my friend Tom, your my good friend Tom Akamia, he was like, "What, for real?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm speaking to Gerry Thomas," and he's like, "Oh my gosh," he was just like, super excited. I think for me, the first time I became aware of your music and stuff would have been Jimmy Castor Bunch from Flashdance, which we obviously said in the previous video. My sister is absolutely addicted to that movie during the 80s. Like, they didn't go a week that she didn't play it off videotape. But yeah, so that's a bit of an introduction. Obviously, complete, just an absolute, like, crazy to speak to you. It's like, yeah, so cool. So to just tell us about the origins of the Fatback Band and working with Jimmy Castor Bunch, Gerry.
Sure. I met Bill before I met Jimmy. Bill and I played in a band based out of Brooklyn. As I mentioned earlier, before we had to restart.
Yeah.
They used to, back in the '60s, people who had dances.
Yeah.
That they went to on the weekends.
Yeah.
That was the early beginnings of disco, you could say.
Yeah.
But it was to live music. And actually it was an outgrowth of the swing bands and stuff back from the 30s, 40s, 50s, the big jazz bands. So Bill was the drummer in the band, and I was playing trumpet at the time.
Yeah.
And he had mentioned to me that he was thinking about starting a band. He used to do, he used to book bands himself to play weekends. That was his thing, because Bill was a session drummer.
Yeah, yeah.
He wasn't a big time session drummer at the time, but he had come up from North Carolina and established himself where he could work there, and he had an office out in Queens, in St. Albans.
Yeah.
And he booked bands out of there. It was called Best Bands.
Right.
And so I had met Jimmy's bass player at the time, Paul Martinez, known as Roland Martinez, and he had introduced me to a lot of different musicians, and so I was doing little things on the side. I was interested in recording and learning how to record and the recording business, and I actually had done a record called A Little Bit of Soul in the Catwalk, which Bill wound up putting out on Fatback Records before the Fatback Band.
Wow.
That actually got some play over there in the UK. So that was interesting.
So what year was that? What year was that, Gerry? What year was that?
Oh, that had to have been maybe 67, 68, somewhere around that time.
Wow, that's great. Wow.
I might have a copy of it. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, that'd be wicked, man. That'd be awesome.
It sounded like something out of Motown, because obviously the '60s Motown was really big, so that sound people were copying. But anyway, Bill had mentioned that he was interested, and I said, "Yeah, I'd love to do that. Help you with that."
Yeah.
So the nucleus of the band was actually Johnny Flippin on bass, Johnny King on guitar, Bill on drums. That was the trio nucleus of it. And then George Williams joined with trumpet, and Earl. What was Earl's last name? Earl. Can't remember his last name now. Was a saxophone player.
Yeah.
George Adams was another saxophone player that sometimes played with them, and so I would help him with that while I was still performing, or while I was working with Jimmy. So I was in Jimmy's band.
Right.
And that was, Jimmy had a hit record called Hey Leroy, Your Mama's Calling You, back in the mid-'60s, around 65, 66.
Yeah.
And so it was just Jimmy Castor at that time. But then when I joined the group, and some of the personnel changed, it developed into the Jimmy Castor Bunch.
Okay.
So I'm working with Jimmy, and I'm helping produce with Bill at the same time.
Okay.
So the only album I missed was his very first one. The very first album he put out on Perception Records. I wasn't on. I didn't participate on that. Yeah. But everyone after that, he did two more for Perception. I think one is Fatback, and then one featuring Johnny King, called Brother Johnny King.
Yeah.
Brother Johnny King. And then I think Perception folded, and he went to Spring. He got a deal at Spring Records on the event label, and that's when that long run started. That was from, I guess that was 74, 73, 74, all the way up to 80.
Yeah.
80,
I'm going to ask you a question about Spring a bit later. Yeah. I'd be interested to see what you got to say on that in relation to some other record. There's the key record I was going to talk about. But yeah, go on.
We got a couple key ones.
yeah. No, true. Real talk.
But anyway, so I'm working with Jimmy, and I'm going to go back and forth with the two because they were almost simultaneous situations. So they had different. There were different effects, right? Because technically, I wasn't part of Fatback Band as in terms of being a working band. You know, I wasn't playing with them at the time, but I would be in the studio with them.
Yeah.
And then I was part of Jimmy, but I was actually playing with Jimmy and helping arrange and do some co-producing. As you had mentioned earlier, Jimmy and I and John Pruitt co-wrote "It's Just Begun," which wound up on the Flashdance in movie and soundtrack. And that was funny because that was a situation where Jimmy came to my house when I was still living at home.
Right.
And I was playing a demo of a tune. If you heard this demo, you would never say "This Has Just Begun." It sounded nothing like what just begun turned out. It was slow.
Literally had just begun, I guess, at that point.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and then when Jimmy was listening to it, he said, "Well, why don't we speed it up and do this?" And we wound up putting it together. He and John came up with the lyric that they wanted for it, and that wound up working for us. But my main point was to say that I was performing with Jimmy, so and producing things with Bill. To bring this over to how it affected the UK,
right?
In 1975, Atlantic Records, because Jimmy was on Atlantic at the time, sub-label of Atlantic, and we went over to the UK with this, what you call the Detroit Spinners. We just call them the Spinners, but it was the Detroit Spinners, Sister Sledge, Benny King, and Jimmy Castor.
Wow.
So we're over there. The first show was in Liverpool.
Okay.
So we did the show in Liverpool, and some of the English kids, invited us, some of the musicians in the band, to go to a discotheque and hang out.
Yeah.
So I'm at the discotheque,
Yeah.
and we're listening to the music, and all of a sudden I'm hearing Wicky Wacky.
Right.
So I said, oh, I know that record. I was playing on that record. And when I said that,
Yeah.
people came rushing to me. It was bigger than the fact I was over there with Jimmy Castor.
Right. Wow.
Because it was that big. And I'm saying, what? Because we didn't know over here
Oh, okay. So they
what
weren't.
was going on.
They didn't necessarily tell you. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Well, when we talk about spring, we'll get into some of that. Anyway.
Okay.
I said, call Bill. I said, Bill,
Yeah.
you better find yourself a promoter over here. You guys are huge over here.
Okay.
He had no idea.
Okay.
And that's what started him coming over. And I think the first time they came over was in '76, I believe.
Yeah.
You know, I think, and they've been over there every year since.
Yeah. Interesting.
I believe, yeah.
Is it because of just the communication took a bit more time to feed back, and back obviously it would have taken time to feed back and say before people realised the momentum, is it were?
Bill, I mean, Spring had a promotion deal with Polydor.
Yeah.
Right? They were distribution label. There were a lot of situations like that in the States, especially for black music, you know, R&B. And I think I can say it now. It was basically a revenue deal for Spring. In other words, Bill was obligated to provide them with 2 albums every year.
Wow.
Regardless of what the records did. In other words, it could have been the biggest hit in the world. You still had to do 2 albums a year. So it was like a factory, because every time you release an album, you're getting the production money. So we kind of knew what was going on, but in terms of promotion,
right.
Some of that we wound up even doing ourselves, where we would hire somebody to try to go out and work some of the records we had, you know, if they made some noise. But one of the disadvantages of that was that sometimes the material wasn't always as good as it should have been, because you were rushed into having to produce something, you know.
Okay.
And it's not like we had a staff of writers just providing us with material. You know, we had to come up with stuff. Yeah. And one of the things that I liked about performing with Fatback, as opposed to Jimmy was more structured. Jimmy went to music and art just like I went to music and art.
Okay.
Much earlier than I did, but still. So we were more formally trained. So when I'm doing things for Jimmy, I'm bringing charts, you know, we got chord changes and everything, and you see how it goes, and you might make some adjustments to the arrangement, but it was basically done. With Bill, we go into the studio.
You'd map it out as you were doing it. You'd be writing notes and
correct.
Yeah, cool.
But when you did Fatback, we go into the studio and Bill saying, well, "What are we gonna do today?"
How did you find like? Because I mean, like between the two, which is it? Just like
I liked both of them, you know, because going to with my music background, I mean, in school I had you know, classical music training. I'm listening to the masters, you know, Bach, Beethoven, you know, Bach, all the rest of that. But I also like jazz. My favorite band was the Count Basie band.
Okay.
I loved Duke Ellington's arrangements.
Yeah.
And things like that. So I liked big sound, and I liked harmony and harmonics. Yeah. What I liked about the Fatback was it gives you a chance to get out of structure, and think more freely. Yeah. You know, it's almost like improvising. You know, so him being a drummer, he's dealing with a groove, you know, and then Flip was a great bass player. And he would come up with an idea, and Johnny would fill in some licks. He played great guitar, rhythm guitar especially. You know, so that was fun. You know, it'd take longer to do the sessions sometimes, but it would be really interesting. So I had the best of both worlds. To me, anyway, that's what I thought about, because I got to expand, you know, my whole range of creativity.
Did you have moments though, like when doing with Fatback Band, where you were just like you do something and you'd be like, oh my god, I'm really not sure about this, but you just was like, let's go, like you do something, and did you have moments like where you're like, I'm not sure about this, but you had the intuition to say, let's go with it. Was that fair to say?
Oh yeah, definitely. As a matter of fact, one of the things I've got maybe 8 cases of cassettes with maybe 30, 40 cassettes in each.
Wow.
Of stuff that we did back in the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
So I'm going to take down and we and Bill are just going to listen to stuff that never got completed.
Serious?
Oh yeah, I'm very serious. Wow. You know, just for inspiration, because you never know. I mean, Bill and I talk all the time because we had no idea that the band would have this kind of longevity. I mean, the idea of being in the music business was hopefully you'd become an Earth, Wind, and Fire and become superstars, and boom, you know, you have that, you make your money and you retire.
Yeah.
But to be at the level that we were, and still can go over, say the UK, more so the UK than here in the United States.
Yeah.
But people remember. And one of the things I found out about traveling overseas, you know, to Europe, to Asia, Japan, some of the other places, is they have a deeper appreciation of the music and the artistry. You know, the United States is all about what's the latest hit, what's the latest fad. That's not to say everybody's into that, but when you're dealing with commercial radio, it's more faddish, you know, who's in vogue, who's in style. Whereas,
would you say that, is that always been the case, would you say? Or?
Always.
Oh, wow.
Always. Yeah, it's always been the case.
Interesting.
Because the U.S. is very profit-driven. You know, so that's not to say that's it. Only maybe the classics, because the classics are old and established and have a different pedigree to it. You know, and maybe some of the blues, but then again, a lot of kids have never even heard some of the blues masters, and it's interesting to see that when they get to college, sometimes they start hearing some of the things, or they wonder where people like Jimi Hendrix and all the stuff, where did these people come from? You know, the Beatles, the British bands, I think, did more to enlighten our blues artists than anything else, because they would acknowledge this is where they got their inspiration.
Yeah.
You know, so
I was gonna jump forward, and then I think I'll jump forward and then jump backwards, because you already spoke about It's Just Begun, but briefly on, and then so I'm gonna jump forward to 79, right, which is this. I want to talk about King Tim III, right, because. For me, I just kind of always assumed that the Sugarhill Gang were the first guys ever, right? And then, of course, there was other stuff on Spring, right, which I discovered from way back. But I want you to speak about that. But obviously, definitely the flow and the vibe and the incantation, like, if that's a fair way of saying it, of King Tim III, which I got on record, that for me has definitely got the spirit and has the flow. And I just wanted you to kind of just speak about that record, because it's like, it's crazy listening to that and thinking, wow, this came out before, the Sugarhill. Yeah.
Back in the mid to late 70s.
Yeah.
This street music, rap and hip hop and this type of party music with the DJs spinning records, you know, in the street and having street parties and things like that, started taking off. And one of the things Bill and I was saying, you know, said to each other, and there was some DJs, I wasn't as deep into it as some people, but I knew I was familiar with, you know, what was happening.
Yeah.
I didn't know all the players.
Yeah.
I get some of my information from my nephew because he was heavy into it. You know, so they would tell us this, different things, and we said, maybe we need to do something, to take advantage of that and incorporate that some way into our music. And we were working on what was that was, I think, was that the Hot Box album? I'm trying to remember. The album was basically finished. The song that King Tim wound up on was already done and mixed.
Okay.
But it wasn't the record, it wasn't the side on that album that we would have said, oh, this is the hit. This is going to be the hit. It was more like filler. So because I was still with Jimmy had some young guys who were into the hip hop as roadies, and sometimes they do some stuff with us. And so
really,
I said we need to ask Anthony and Ron, who do they know anybody that could, do some rap, that does rap and, on the street. So they said, yeah, we got a guy.
So were they rapping to you at that point? Like, but they were just more youthful and they weren't.
Well, I went to them and I asked them, Bill and I asked them if they knew somebody that was doing that. And basically there were a lot of guys that were doing that just in the street. You were doing it at local parties or mixing on the street parties, especially in the summertime. We had heard rumblings of it, obviously from like I said, in my case, it was my nephew, who was about 20 years younger than I am. Yeah. And so he was into that, the music and the party music, and he was familiar with a lot of that stuff. And actually, in the area where my mother was living at the time, in the Soundview area of the Bronx, there was a lot of activities, and there was a record store about a quarter of a mile from the house where I got familiar with the owner of that shop, and he was deep into it as well. So we knew it was bubbling under. Nobody had really had anything record-wise that had come out yet. Okay. So, like I said, we had just finished an album, but we didn't really hear anything in that album that we thought was going to jump out. So we thought maybe if we could find somebody that does the rap, we could put them on a track or something, do a recording.
Yeah.
So I asked some of the guys that were roadies with Jimmy, I asked them about if they knew anybody. And they said, yeah, we know a guy, Tim Washington, lives in Harlem. And I said, hey, let's meet, So that's what we did.
It's a great.
And we took him into the studio.
Yeah.
We had a track called Catch the Beat. And if you listen to the record, you hear that's a big part of the whole song. We said, we got some open spots in here. Yeah. Let's put them in there. Now, the thing was, the whole album had already been mixed down to a 2-track.
Wow.
It was ready to go to the mastering lab to get, the acetates created.
Yeah.
So what we had to do was drop him into the 2-track mix.
Okay.
So he was never on his own track. Okay. So that's how we did that. We just put him in the spots where there was no, none of the instrumental part of the record.
Right.
And
so you had to sort of make it fit, knowing that you got this. So was it like you chose a track which was a bit pared down so you could fit him in?
Right. Yeah, we knew that track would fit the genre.
Yeah.
So we figured that would be the best one. We had him listen to it as well, and he already there was lyrics that he used at parties and stuff all the time anyway, which is another story, and I'll get into that in a minute. but anyway, So after we did that, we played it for some people. Now, Spring was scared to death
Really?
releasing that record.
Really?
Yes.
But that's what I was going to say, because obviously he's got a history with Pecan. Oh, what's his name? Pecan Mark. Oh, you know what I'm talking about? On Spring. What's his name? Pecan Markham or something. I forgot his name now. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? Here Comes the Judge.
Oh, yeah. Pygmy Martin, yeah.
Big Markham, that's it. Yeah, I've got that record, but
Yeah.
no.
But
Go ahead.
what it was, and I guess that record, because there was a history of him doing that on TV and different things, they're laughing and all that. So they were scared that the DJs would not play it, because back in those days, the DJs, there was a lot of DJs talk, not rapping necessarily, but talking. Frankie Crocker, all these guys, there was personalities, And what had happened is Bill had gone down. Every year there used to be what was called Jack the Rapper. Okay. He was in the radio business. He had a convention. It was all the black jocks, all the top black jocks in the country would come to wherever the convention was being held. And that particular year, it was in Philadelphia. So Bill went down to Philadelphia with the record.
Wow.
With the tape, and played it for guys, because we wanted to get a sampling. Was there going to be resistance because of that fact?
Okay.
So we road tested it, so to speak. Man, they said, "Man, bring it." We love it. Bring it.
Wow.
Spring refused to put it out as the single.
Okay.
So they did "You're My Candy Sweet," which was the record, and Bill was singing it, and Bill is not a singer. If you listen to it, we said, well, if you're going to put the Candy Sweet out, put it on the B side. Put it on the B side.
Yeah.
So that's what they did. In the meantime, some people who knew Joe Robinson knew about the record. And they had told Joe, man, Fatback's got a record that's going to blow up. And
you're talking about from Sugarhill. Is that correct?
Joe Robinson was the president. He and Joe and Sylvia Robinson, Sugarhill Records.
One tied, I understand, was just coincidental they had the same surname, or were they linked in any way?
No. It was a promotion guy that did some work for Joe, and because there was already underground discussion in the radio markets.
Okay.
When something's coming up, it'll bubble, and everybody starts hearing different things, So more or less they were waiting for it. So he told Joe about it, and that's when they went in and did their record.
Right.
And got it out. I think they got it out maybe 2 or 3 weeks after ours, but because You're My Candy Sweet was the A side that was being played.
Yeah.
Theirs came in and just blew it out. But that's why you see that controversy. You see that controversy where they say, well, Fatback had the first release, rap record other than Pygmy Martin, because even we know the history of where that was. That was back in the late 40s, early 50s when he first did that novelty record about Here Comes the Judge and all that.
So I got the record. It says 68.
Yeah, 68 is when they brought it out.
Seriously, so it was before.
Commercially again, but he that was part of his act way back. Yeah,
it's interesting because there's a record. Because that one is close, but it's not quite there yet. But it's pretty close because it's pretty close. But then there's another track on there where they're hitting off each other, and it's purely vocals only, and that is pretty much on the money. I was listening to that, I was like, wow, that is like bang on. And you're thinking that's a whole 11 years before you guys then put out, Tim the Third. So I was like, that shocked me. That shocked me when I heard that.
Yeah, because disco was still, on fire all through the 70s. So radio in most places were dealing with that. And it wasn't until synthesizers and the what they call beatboxes, which are the synthesized drum machines, started coming around where kids start playing with it to see if they create their own little beats, and that was the start of the whole hip hop.
But I suppose you guys become a different
perspective.
Proper music. We say this. Yeah. We say it with what's the best word? The classical musicians, like classically trained, let's say, because I think proper is a bit unfair, isn't it? With this debate will go on for eternity. But classically trained, whereas they were, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah, because it's getting ready to really blow up with AI.
Oh yeah,
it's really getting ready to blow up because. Well, we can get into that later if you want to, but
that's not
I got some strong feelings about that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, so basically they got wind of it because when you read online, you hear it's a bit a different story. Like they had the idea, but it sounds like they were kind of around about seeing someone, and then it was just like you gave them the kick to say, we better do something now. Correct?
Everybody, I think there were a lot of people in New York, especially, in New York that were doing it, I don't remember the names because I really wasn't into it.
Yeah.
My nephew knew all of those acts of time because he was starting to DJ a little bit, in the street and all the rest of that. Yeah. But I don't think the record companies weren't necessarily looking to jump into that.
Yeah.
And if you look at the history of R&B, most of the times record companies weren't leading the charge. There were a few, actually Motown, because it was black-led, Solar, Philly, International. Yeah. But I can tell you some horror stories about RCA and some other labels, that we dealt with. You talk about It's Just Begun. We couldn't get them to put that record, that was RCA. We couldn't get them to get that included onto the movie track album.
Okay. Seriously?
Seriously, which obviously tamped down, the impact that it had on us because all the street kids knew about that. That was blowing up.
Yeah.
That was a real forerunner of what became street music.
That's another question. Were you at the time? Was it that were because obviously there were tapes. So I'm just trying to think. How can I forget his name? Oh my gosh. There's I forgot his name. The main MC with Grandmaster Flash. Oh, what was his name? Oh my gosh. Hang on, let me just check it quickly. How can I forget?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It was in the Furious 5. Let's have a quick look. My gosh. Melly Mel.
Oh no.
Yeah, so he said he would, and I think also when I spoke to Melly Mel, I saw this on like a clip recently, and then also Cosmo D of Nucleus I interviewed as well. He was saying that it kicked off in '79, and the implication was that that was really the point when it did start. The shift did occur. Before that, it was mainly kind of more. They called it, b-boying, just kind of like dancing,
right? Break dancing and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly.
But then it kind of felt like there wasn't longevity in that. That's why they switched to actually emceeing and proper rhyming. And is that fair to say, or? Yeah,
I think it all kind of started coming together. Obviously, because the break dancing, they were dancing off of the rhythms.
Yeah,
so there was nothing that you could do with that in terms of putting out something, except probably Soul Makossa would have been the closest, musical instrumental.
Yes.
version, that tapped into that.
That was about
But then
was that 80 or 79? That was 79 as well.
that was either late 70s, early 80s. I think it was late 70s.
Yeah.
But with the drum machine gave the kids the opportunity to create their own beats. Then they could rap over those beats, because what they until the samplers came,
Yeah.
there were rhythms that they liked in our music and Fatback, James Brown, Funkadelic, all these acts,
Yeah.
and but they couldn't recreate it because they weren't musicians. So what the sampler allowed them to do was take bits and pieces and string them together. Now they didn't have the classical musical training, so it wasn't always as smooth as it should have been, but it was good enough for them,
Yeah.
So that's how that developed and came about. As disco was fading, that started rising up,
I suppose it's a slow burn initially as well with these things. Is that fair to say? Because at first,
Yeah.
resistance from the likes of yourself, or you might be thinking, what are these guys up to? And then there's mistrust on both sides. They're like, we don't want to get them involved. Is that fair to say, or not really? Or
Well, I mean, we would have never turned into a rap group. For several reasons. I mean, we were too old, I think, at the time. And it's funny because we did a cruise a couple of months ago with that Sugarhill was on, and so you see them, they're older, but they're not my age group. They're about 30 years younger than I am.
serious? Wow.
Yeah, 20 to 30 years younger than, yeah, but it was we knew it was something we could dabble in.
Yeah.
And our idea with Tim,
Yeah.
because at that time that was party. That's before gangster rap came and all the rest of that, and it started getting a harder edge. It was just an extension of party music that you put on when you're having fun and you want to get there. So to us, he could have been like another Will Smith,
Yeah.
and some of the other guys that were out there that was on the clean cut side before it made that hard shift to the West Coast, and the East Coast, But Tim was lazy.
Okay.
Unfortunately. And
still around? Is he still? He's still around, is he?
Bill and I asked ourselves that question maybe a week or so ago. We knew he was in Houston and he was in Arizona. I know he had some difficulties, which I won't get into.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I haven't heard anything from him.
So you'd have to hunt him down, basically, like research and put it together.
Yeah. But I mean, he knows he blew a big opportunity. He blew a big opportunity, because when we did with King Tim the Third, that was a rap that he had developed. I guess I don't know whether he had heard it, some stuff from other people, got stuff he got from himself, cobbled it together. That was fine. When we did Gotta Get My Hands on Some Money, which has a rap in that,
Okay.
I had to write it.
Okay. So did that one come out as well? Correct.
Yeah. Money, oh money, gotta get my hands on some.
Okay.
That came out.
Okay.
And then we did a roller skating rap record with him, Roller Boogie Baby.
Yeah,
I had to write that.
Serious. So you wrote that, but that's a brilliant. I love that record.
I wrote that, and then he would come to me, Gerry, write something. I said, I'm not a rapper. I said, this is your thing.
Yeah.
Why don't you learn, how to do it so you can, man, do you know what you could be getting into? Because
okay. So that came out in spring, if I recall, didn't it?
Yeah.
The roller skating one. Is that right?
I'm sorry?
That one came out on Spring Records, didn't it?
Yes, was a Spring. It was either Spring or a specialty label that they put that on. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was just lazy. You know, he loved the attention, but he wouldn't do the work. I said my head's in a different area. You know, I'm not around those kind of crowds to even think about doing that. You know, those were short, easy little things to do. But
yeah, so it was just kind of like he was enjoying the attention you put it, maybe like the the female,
correct,
but like
correct, yeah,
that's a shame because I was like wondering why there's so few records, and then yeah, I kind of put like, in my mind I was like I thought it had to be something along those lines, but I didn't know ultimately. But yeah,
and because let's see, after Roller Boogie Baby, the next rap we did was more of an adult contemporary rap. That was Is This the Future?
Yeah.
You know, with Jerry Bledsoe. I wanted to do something that had a more mature aspect to it.
Yeah.
You know, quasi jazz, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, but we were musicians, so to speak. And that's a funny story too, because Bill and I we had some girls that would perform with us on stage. We called them Wild Sugar.
Yeah.
And we did a song with them that we put out on a little label out of Brooklyn.
Okay.
Didn't do much.
Okay.
Evidently, the Beastie Boys heard it because they used it for Brass Monkey.
Serious?
If you listen to Brass Monkey, the very beginning of the record, you hear a saxophone playing octave. Do 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 do.
Oh, okay.
That came off of our record.
Oh my God.
And we went after them on that, and it was funny because when they got deposed, you know, they were trying to explain how they created that intro, and I laughed my butt off listening to them trying to explain that.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't mind guys using stuff, but you know, give credit. That was the biggest.
Was it the credit, or did you also want to say, "Come on, you need to give us a little bit of something as well"?
Yeah. So, well, we wound up getting something, but you know, but it was from the back end. But it did, between our situation and obviously situations with other people, you know, like Punkadelic and James Brown and stuff like that. That had to get organized, you know, where people started providing credit when they were using stuff.
It became so like sampling became so big so quickly, people just couldn't even catch up. They're like, oh my God, this is happening left, right, center. And
right.
How are we even going to control this now?
Which, like I said, could if you ever want to touch on that, and like I said, we don't have to do it this time. If you want to do another one on that subject, going into AI.
Holding on for weeks, man.
Oh man, I mean, I could play you some stuff on AI. You'd never know that it was a computer.
Okay.
You know, so to me, that means, because when people get what we used to call elevator music, Muzak, remember that?
Yeah.
And it could get to a point, well, Muzak, I always laugh when I see advertisements for stereo speaker where it's only one speaker.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out, how do you get stereo out of one speaker?
Yeah, true.
But, you know, people don't know, they don't know. They hear their music. Hey, that's fine, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
but
when they get to a point,
they say
the element gets taken out altogether, because all now you have to do is just say, I want you to create this, create that, create the other. And yeah. I mean, even the vocals you don't know are a computer.
Yeah, I mean, I had this discussion because I went up to this. There's a local gathering here, Reese, where we are, and there you get folks that bring along pieces of gear, and they do a little performance, and then they talk about the piece of gear. And And then the first chap that I came in, he had one piece of gear, and I straight away recognised it. It was from the late '90s. He did a very cool performance. And I spoke to him afterwards, and we got onto this topic of AI, as you do with every single person you speak to now, and what you feel about it. And he's saying he's referring to it as slop, and that the music it made is very easy to identify. And it gave me encouragement because I thought, okay, maybe there's a world that can go on where this stuff kind of disappears or become. I think it'd be good to get your feelings on that. I've got my view, but it'd be good to get your feelings on that. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting. Several things obviously are impacting performances, live performances.
Yeah.
One being cost, because obviously the major artists.
Yeah.
I believe there's even some legal action now where either Congress is looking at Live Nation or whatever, because the cost, not the last time we were in England, but I think it was earlier this year, or maybe it was last year when what's the top female singer? I can't think of her name right now.
In England, I don't know.
No, she's from here. She's from here. The girl that plays guitar and sings.
Sorry, go ahead, Gerry.
Yeah, she plays guitar and sings.
I've got one crawling.
Get ready to marry the football player from Kansas City.
Yeah.
You know, anyway.
Yeah.
She did some shows, a series of shows in England.
Yeah.
People were flying over from America to go to the concert in England because it was cheaper than the cost here in America. Okay,
gotcha.
Her name will come to me, and I don't know why I'm blanking out on her, but I can see her face. But a nice person.
No apologies. It was just because my daughter just walked in.
No problem. You should have asked her. She'll know.
She didn't block it, but yeah. I'm thinking, what kids are like.
But so it'll depend on how people respond to it.
Yeah.
Obviously, it can be a problem with live performances.
Yeah.
Unless you find really good singers that are they going to meld the two? It's weird because the Milli Vanilli situation. And it's funny, even the Change situation, because Luther wasn't going out with Change, and he was the one doing all the leads. And we did some shows with Change. We knew the people in the group, but that wasn't the studio recording, at least not the first records that he did.
Because I was going to say, because obviously you've got a lot of, I guess, you had a lot of situations where you'd have people would front up. Obviously, they'd be fronting up, and you guys would be in the studio creating. And I suppose it's an interesting sort of dynamic, because then you've got the performance side of it, and then you've got the people who really created the music. But ultimately, you guys are getting paid pretty nicely because it's you that've written the music. So I guess it's a trade-off. Would that be fair to say? That you've got more ownership, you've got more rights on the music because you essentially wrote it. Is that fair to say, or how do you feel about this whole thing? Because
that depends, because the business aspect of it has changed dramatically.
I'm talking about in the past as opposed to
Well, but you hear see some YouTube videos where they talk about this. Back in the days when it was albums and singles and cassettes and CDs, there was a certain structure. Streaming has tore that up. I mean, I've never seen so many zeros behind a decimal point as I see when I see statements now.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know you could split it down that far. So the dynamics, you know, the economics have changed. Yes, you can still make a lot of money. Obviously, you know, Beyonce and people in that area, you get enough airplay,
Yeah.
you know, it compensates, but
Yeah.
it can make it very difficult. You know, the same thing in terms of doing live shows. I mentioned earlier that we did a cruise with Sugarhill Gang. You know, I see we did another cruise with the Commodores, the remaining members of the Commodores.
Wow.
And there are a lot of acts that are. Evelyn Champagne King was on it. You know, a lot of acts are working that now. You know, as to work because you can't fill up you know, there's no promoter that's gonna book you for, you know, 1,000-seat venue or higher, you know, at the prices that are being asked for those types of venues now.
Yeah.
You know, so it makes it tough.
Yeah. But I mean, I think about, like, for example, some of the kind of the guys from that scene, like from more from the New York hip hop scene, early electro scene and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
There have been promoters here that have just put them on, and they put them on in, maybe, I'm thinking a long time back, we're talking maybe 20 years ago, to be honest. So it's changed a lot, but they would have just put them on in their local patch in the UK. Again, I'm referring to New, because I remember there was, they brought those guys over in the early 2000s, and it was up near Birmingham somewhere, but like maybe a town, because Birmingham's our second biggest town, but second biggest city here. We've got London, then we've got, you probably know.
Yeah.
But it was like, I remember at the time thinking, wow. Like, as you do, you think, you know, you can go and see this band. But yeah, I think that, yeah, I think it's just it has changed a lot. But I think that the people buying the records, like the likes of myself and others, I think that audience hopefully will continue, and I trust, I hope that it's going to get passed down to other generations, because there seems to be a thirst for you know, the physical again. But it's and the figures seem quite high. You know, they seem quite high, and I'm trying to understand it now, because there's you know, when you go to a record shop and you ask them about sales and stuff, it seems like a lot more, but it doesn't seem to equate with reality that I'm seeing. But I don't know. It'd be good to get your thoughts on that as well.
I've heard that records are making a comeback, especially for young people.
Yeah.
I don't know how sales of turntables are going, but you know that they're buying records. Matter of fact, Ace has started releasing some of their catalog, the spring catalog, and their catalog on vinyl now. You know,
Ace was around for a while, correct? And then they brought up spring as well. Is that correct?
Correct. Ace was basically dealt with more oldie acts, English acts, so more so than contemporary stuff. Yeah. And then, but they when Spring's deal with Polydor dissolved, basically, you know, because we were being directly promoted by Polydor, but it was like the last two albums that we did.
Yeah, so
before we went to Atlantic. Yeah.
Is that so? All that stuff.
The feature and the last one. Yeah.
Is that all your stuff retrospectively, not going forwards? Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And then we did two albums with Atlantic on the Cotillion label.
Yeah.
and then one independent, and then Bill did one. I think when they went to Tokyo, I'd left the band by that time.
Yeah.
I had to get a real job.
Yeah. I was gonna say just on I should have said it at the time, but I did actually come across a mixtape, and it said it was from 1978. It was a live recording of
Hammersmith?
of a block party,
Oh, okay.
and they were emceeing over it, and it was totally the flow of the
Okay.
and it was very tight. And I was like, oh yeah, it's like 70. I think so. It gets you to thinking there must be things kicking around. Of course, it didn't reach it on record, but it does get you to thinking: is there anything kicking around that people just did? You know.
Oh, that's why I mentioned, in the earlier version that I've got a ton of tapes, cassettes,
Yeah.
that I'm gonna sit down with Bill and we're just gonna listen to them and see, things that weren't finished at the time,
Okay, interesting. Okay.
I mean, obviously I can't break down I can break down a cassette, but the quality is not going to be the same as if it was on a DAT, or even on a multi-track. But it may at least inspire some inspiration or see what we can do.
Here's the thing.
With it.
The Beastie Boys put out their tapes, and the recording quality is terrible, but it's sold by the truckload, right? They did.
Yeah.
You know the one I'm talking about. What was it? It was called Some Old BS, and it was all their punk stuff, and I think the Cookie Puss EP as well, which was, I don't know what kind of, it's not really a rap record, but but I remember thinking, wow, this sounds, even back then thinking this sounds terrible, but it was great to listen to, and
yeah.
I just think, why not, theoretically?
You never know.
You never know.
You never know.
Music. Yeah. Did you have anything else that was of that time where you had a rapper on at all? We had MCing that didn't come out.
No, not in that sense. I mean, as I said before, Bill is not a singer. So basically he raps through the records. Most of them, if you listen to it.
Okay.
There might be a melody sometimes, but
right.
It was one of the funniest things on the let's see, I think it was This Is the Future album. There's a song called Up Against the Wall.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of free association for Bill. When he go into the studio, we just put on the track, let him rap, say whatever he wants to say. Might do it once, might do a couple of them, We'd have our post-midnight recording sessions a lot of times. I mean, it was just wild. Well, that particular song was popular in Houston, in the Texas area. So
yeah.
So the record company wanted to send me down there and King Tim.
Okay.
And Bill wouldn't go because he knew.
Right.
He never does that. He'll never, he rarely ever does anything like that because he forgets. Right as after he's done it, it's gone.
Right.
He could listen to it 100 times. It wouldn't come out the way he did it. So he just wouldn't do it. So I'm saying, well, Tim doesn't know it, and I certainly not gonna learn it. So who's gonna do it?
Oh, okay.
We had to do it, and this was for Tom Joyner. Okay. Tom Joyner, who was a big radio jock. He had shows out of Texas, I think Dallas or Houston, and Chicago. Chicago was his home base at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was huge. We had to go. Okay. I forget how we got through that one, but it was
this was
hilarious.
This was a gig then, was it, basically saying? Or
no, it was promotional. it was a promotional tour. So Tom would have artists come by, and just make an appearance. It would be like an outdoor thing most of the times,
Yeah.
where they might play the track or play the record, and the artist would sing over it or something like that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't doing a show. It was just like introducing the artist, sort of like Soul Train, but outside.
Wow.
So we used to always tease Bill about that because, so Candy Sweet probably was the closest thing, though he never performed it live.
Yeah.
It was probably the closest thing to him actually singing a song.
Right. So you just sort of, I mean, obviously, of course, it's kind of different, right? I guess because you've done live so often, you're going to be more comfortable with it. But even so, how it is. It's quite different from one being in a studio environment without any eyes on you and amongst your pals that you're comfortable with, to going out and doing it in front of an audience. Is that fair to say, or is it you're just so relaxed that it's,
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. The issue for Bill was that Bill is not a singer.
Okay. Yeah.
Never been a singer. He's a drummer. So singing per se, where you learn a song to sing it.
Yeah.
Maybe Mary Had a Little Lamb, but that's as far as it's going. And he might change the lyric on that.
Yeah.
So and I think I touched on it a little bit maybe in the first session.
Yeah.
That was part of the difference with recording with Fatback and recording with Jimmy.
Yeah.
Because in the studio with Fatback, it was kind of free association, whatever you had an idea. And if you captured it then, that was it.
Okay.
There were a few times where we might go back and redo something.
Yeah.
But it wasn't Bill's vocal.
Okay.
Yeah. That either stayed the same or we do multiples tracks of it and then put stuff put it together like that.
Yeah.
But,
so with Jimmy, with the Jimmy Castor Bunch and that iconic track from Flashdance, which I remember.
It's Just Begun.
It's Just Begun, exactly. Obviously, that's like a b-boy. That's like the b-boy anthem with fair to say.
Correct.
Correct. That rhythm. That's the template, and you see it on thousands of videos, people dancing to that do 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 do. You could, you know what I mean? That rhythm.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, they told us that because we didn't know it in the beginning.
Yeah.
So it was different people that got in touch with Jimmy and said, "Hey, blah 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 blah," and they told us about it. But you're right. I've been on YouTube, and there are tons and tons of that. Where people were either dancing to it or break dancing because that was their theme.
Yeah.
Which made the fact that RCA wouldn't get it put in as part of the soundtrack disappointing because I think it would even help sales.
So you're saying so it didn't go in the soundtrack of Flashdance at all?
Correct.
Oh, incidentally, my sister does. She does have that on vinyl as well. So, because I bought it for her, but I didn't realize that. Yeah. That's a shame. But I mean, at the time, obviously, but just Flashdance aside and everything like that, obviously, that must have been picking up in all those parties at the time, in the Bronx and so on and so forth. Is that fair to say? And just in New York wide, it was.
Oh yeah, New York, Philly, the greater New York area, if you want to say, even down to DC.
Yeah.
They knew about it because that was the up and coming thing at that particular time. Yeah.
Yeah.
That came out in late 71, early 72.
That's a long time ago. So I was going to say that so when, again, we kind of touched on this, but when you be doing tracks, with either Fatback or the Jimmy Castor Bunch. In that instance, there must still been a point where people were like, let's just try something. And there's that kind of moment where you have to have a leap of faith and say, look, this doesn't sound like other things. Can we go with it? Is that fair to say? Because for me, it sounds unique, but I guess they must have taken the idea from somewhere else. But so it's still, it's a kind of a vibe in itself.
Well, I guess because Jimmy and I were both trained musicians, having gone to school and learned about orchestration and things like that, our recording sessions were more prepared. In other words, we rehearse before we went in, and once you went into the studio, that's it. So
you write at home, and then
right. We rehearse somewhere.
Yeah.
Rehearse what we're going to play, and then, or even rehearse it. Not so much rehearse it in the studio, but run it down in the studio and then record it.
Got it.
Because Jimmy didn't like being in the studio a long time anyway. I don't think I've ever did a session.
Money. Is that what it was? Or?
Well, that was part of it. No, in those days, I think, other than the fact of It's Just Begun,
yeah,
which was on Kinetic,
yeah,
and then taken over by RCA, then you had a budget. So budget, you got a little more leeway. With Fatback, it was always coming out of Bill's pocket in the beginning, and then he'd get reimbursed. So,
seriously.
But the funniest thing is, Bill would spend hours in the studio.
Okay.
Spend hours. I mean, I can remember going into Blue Rock down in Soho.
Yeah.
At that time, and I might go in at 8 or 9 at night and come out at 3 a.m.
Wow.
And it's always been like that. Because most of the times we didn't have anything prepared.
Yeah.
So it was just, what do you feel? You got an idea for something and create it right there.
Wow. Yeah.
The first time the bands did anything that was written out was stuff that I would write out sometimes.
But I mean, obviously, so for example, if you're at home, I mean, obviously, so most people, I don't know, depend, but most people that I know of, when they come to making music, you'll usually start with a beat. Whether the beat remains as is, you start with your backing beat. And I imagine it was perhaps a bit different back then. You might start with a riff.
No drum machine.
Yeah, exactly. But obviously now you're working to a click, not necessarily click, but you'll have a beat in mind. You either play it live or you program it out, and then that as a basis for the rest of the track. That's your kind of your starting point. But I mean, I guess as Bill was the drummer, did he ever say, "Look, I'm going to come up with," I guess how did that work? How did that work in terms of what was?
Sometimes he would have a beat and an idea, and then he would try to sing. It wouldn't be so much a melody as a rhythm.
Yeah.
Which is kind of logical, him being a drummer.
Yeah.
And the fact that he, Flip, and Johnny would do dances and work together, they already had that. They were familiar with each other. So that made it a little bit easier. So it would just be a question when I would come in, because I would be playing the keys usually. I might add something harmonically or rhythmically or make a suggestion on a chord change or something like that kind of thing, But I would follow their lead. And that's why I like that, because I didn't know what I was going to be doing before I got there. Whereas when I went in with Jimmy, with the stuff that we just did as the band, we already knew. And then if I'm putting strings or horns on it, those parts have been written out so that the players already had, they had the parts and they just play what was on the sheet.
So it
You
sounds to
know?
me like more of a very strategic cost saving exercise. Like you thought, I can't be in the studio forever. I need to get this stuff nailed beforehand.
Well, I mean, that was even my experience. Even when I got out of high school, and I started doing some recording sessions in New York. 'Cause obviously, a lot of records were recorded in New York, different types of things. So I'd go on sessions with other musicians and
Yeah,
see how it was done.
yeah,
And there were very few times that it would be where there was nothing written out for the musicians.
yeah.
A matter of fact, one time I did a session with some other horn players, and the arranger, all he put on the sheet was chord changes.
Right, right.
And the lead trumpet player, he just said to me, "Play whole notes. You ain't getting paid to be the arranger. Play whole notes."
Oh my gosh. I'm going to ask this question on behalf of my friend who I mentioned before, which is my good friend Tom Akamia. So I mentioned earlier, when I said,
Right.
was it?
From Ghana.
Yeah, that's it. I'll send him the link and you can check out. He plays. He's really into everything, but he's very much into Ghanaian high life and a lot of that kind of stuff. So which is really cool. So I want to ask you about I Found Loving, because
Mhm.
that came out in '83, but then more of an impact a bit later on. So yeah,
Interesting story on that one. But go ahead.
yeah. So I was going to say, if you could just sort of tell us about how that came about and then the impact and, you know.
Oh, okay. Obviously, we don't always know what's going to be successful, you
Yeah,
know. And one of the things was at that time we knew that Bill and I knew that his deal with Spring was getting ready to expire.
okay.
It was supposed to expire after "Is This the Future?" That
Yeah,
album, not the With Love album,
yeah,
because I had a relationship. I had done some things with Henry Allen at Atlantic Records, Cotillion Records,
yeah.
uh, and I wanted to move the band over there.
Okay.
And one of the things I was telling Bill, I said, Spring keeps us doing these 2 albums a year. That's too much, because especially not being a band full of writers, we didn't have a staff of writers and stuff like that. So you're basically trying to create, but you're not really giving the product enough time to be fully explored so you can maximize it. But we knew what the deal was. Spring got budget every time this album
that's like
was
20,
due.
20 tracks a year. So that's what, 20 tracks a year. So like, hang on, that's about 2 tracks a month that have got to be done and dusted pretty much. Is that fair to say?
Mm-hmm.
Is that that sounds pretty full on, considering you must be doing other things as well.
Oh yeah, like working.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty full on.
Yeah.
Because
So I mean, generally we wouldn't be in the studio. I mean, we'd be in the studio a long time for a particular session, but it amazed me when I used to hear what the rock bands, when they talked about they were working on an album for 5 months, 6 months.
yeah,
What? Because we didn't do anything close to that.
okay,
Like I said, Jimmy didn't like being in the studio. We knew what we were going to record. We're going to record them.
yeah. So you go into the studio and you bash out. You kind of get the whole lot done in a very short space of time, essentially, not spread out over the actual year.
Yeah. And most albums back then were roughly 45 minutes to 50 minutes. Especially with R&B music, which has a lot of low end. Back in those days, you couldn't put a lot of frequency on a lacquer record because that needle would bounce all over the place, So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So So yeah, I found loving. So like that one came out originally in '83, is that correct? And then it blew up a lot later. So so how do you?
That was because, like I said, when we did this the Future album, I'm thinking, okay, now we can move over. And then Bill, no, we owe them one more. I said, what? Because I had a conversation about Bill, like I said, about
Yeah.
trying to stretch these out. We need to go someplace with. So he didn't know where we were going, so he panicked and signed an extension.
Okay.
So that wound up with the stay to spring, right? So Spring wasn't promoting anything,
Okay.
you know. I can remember we did a show in London where I Found Lovin' was in the middle of the show.
Okay.
It wasn't the closing song.
Okay.
And we saw the reaction to it. And we just looked at each other. Said, what is going on?
Okay.
We had no idea.
Yeah.
You know, and the Polydor people said, man, you know, I know the Atlantic, when we went to Atlantic, said, if we'd had that album, you know, so that was a missed opportunity. But anyway, that just goes to show, depending on how we feel about the songs or what we knew, which songs were the ones that hadn't gotten some radio play and some movement on the charts. That's how you know.
Yeah.
I Found Lovin' wasn't a big record in the States until later on, back when Jeff Redd did it, and then, you know, they re-released it in England, as you know, and Steve's version.
Yeah. Wow. And it had had a big impact. I understand. Like at the time, it was just.
Oh, it was huge. It was a huge record. It you know, it's funny because you look at those instances, and Bill and I have had this conversation. We're saying, you wonder what would have happened if those little oddities hadn't happened and the breaks had fallen differently.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But I suppose
we might not be talking now, you know.
Look, I mean, for me, like I think for me personally, there's loads of great music, and just because like obviously there's loads of great music. I'm sure you're aware that there's gonna be artists you're super passionate about, but maybe they didn't have a that mega stellar release, but you can go back and listen to their music and think, wow, this is great stuff, you know. So I never assume and think it's a given just because you know, records, they didn't have this or that I would discount their music, because I'd never, you know, I'm sure you wouldn't do that either. You'd be like,
no, I mean, in a sense, and I didn't mean to it's just something you wonder about.
Yeah.
Because the path could have been entirely different. The band could have blown up. Yeah. And then today, nobody knows who Fatback was.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because those kinds of things happen too.
Yes.
This way, the band has been working for the 50 years.
Yeah.
Which is not the usual, and, you know, for a level that we were at. Happen, you know. I mean, you understand Earth, Wind and Fire, Maze, Funkadelic. You understand that, but you know, where's Fat Larry's band? BT Express. You know, they might put together somebody, and it might not even have an original in it. You know, so.
But there are obviously, when you look back, like you've got the big sort of funk and disco bands. There's a number of still doing things, and they are putting out things here and there. And I mean, obviously, I think it's interesting because they're going to have like their kind of core people, maybe people from as young as me up and beyond. that are going to be like, that's the sound we like, blah blah blah, and then at the same time they're thinking, shall we stretch out and embrace da da da. Yeah, I'm sure you think the same as well. You're like, how do we go with this? How do we play it, or do we play to our strengths, or do we say no? Let's. You must have that conversation. You must have that thought as well. Is that fair to say?
Well, yeah, it depends on where you're actually playing, because obviously,
Yeah.
In the States, it's media dominated. In other words, you've got to be fairly current on the charts or having had a big impact at some point.
Yeah.
So people know who you are.
Yeah.
If they've never heard you before, then you got to blow them out of the water, and that can be iffy depending on what they like and what you're playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I found that the rest of the world, especially Europe and Asia, is different.
Right.
They listen, they delve into what's that history. If they like somebody, then let me see what else they did, what else, so that they're more familiar with the catalog.
Yeah.
Than people are here in the States.
I think what you say, you've hit the nail on the head pretty much. I think that folks here, they like to feel the history of the music. It's not just about the music. It's like It's like the struggle and just that and how it came about. That's what it's just not the music itself. It goes deeper than that. The fact that it's a wider thing. That's why because we're kind of greedy over here. I will say that, like, we're greedy, and especially the folks like me, we like to just listen to lots of different stuff, and you want to delve into. And it wasn't always like this, because there was a point where I was just like, I got my music that I listened to, and that's it. And the shift came around 96, 97. Someone sent me a mixtape of all the classic electro, and that was what triggered, because I'd hear little things. Mm-hmm. We were very isolated where we lived back in the day. We weren't in the big city, so we just got the filtered stuff. We weren't able to access all the other things. We had a station here which we could pick up out in the sticks called, I think it was Soul FM. So you'd hear a lot of the soul music. This was around maybe 84, 5, something like that. So that was when it was the phrasing soul became a big thing. So you're talking like slow jams and all that kind of stuff. But aside from that, I would just hear the big stuff, like maybe your Chaka Khan and Michael Jackson. And so that was, the stuff which just really blew up. So when I heard that, that was what triggered me. I was like, oh God, and then I started digging massively deep, going way, way back. So I don't know. Maybe it is a European thing. Maybe, I'm not sure. Maybe it's maybe it's something to do with, folks my age as well. And
well, from what some of the guys at Ace have been telling me, that I know I was talking with Roger and Ted the last time we were over there.
Yeah.
That they're finding that a lot of young people are coming in looking at the vinyl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Going through the vinyl. So they're looking, and college age kids have always wanted to have their own music.
Right.
It wasn't always what their parents were listening to, or even necessarily what was on the radio.
Exactly.
They want to find out. Well, let's. It was like if you found something that you thought was hip and you played it for your friends and they liked it. Now you cool.
Here's the thing, right? Here's the thing, Gerry. Right? Okay, I have been playing Michael Jackson on and off for years. I play a lot, but now they're trending Michael Jackson. Suddenly my kids are like, oh, Michael Jackson. But I'm saying I've been playing this for like 10 years on and off. I don't play it every day. I play it sometimes when I'm in the mood, and I'll play the old school stuff like Off the Wall and Thriller. Those are the ones because I grew up Thriller was my era, and I remember
Yeah,
it fondly.
yeah,
Uh, but now it's like I know what you're saying, because there's like you play them lots and lots of things. I do play lots of funk, lots of fusion, old school electro, all that kind of thing. They're like they just insult me, say it's rubbish, daddy's music. So I know what you're saying, and it takes time to twig that they just like there's a rebelliousness there that they don't want to be molded into what you listen to.
yeah. And sometimes, it's maybe skipping 2 generations,
Yeah,
where they haven't heard all it. They might know the name, but they haven't really listened. And then all of a sudden, or the music that's current is getting boring because
yeah,
everything sounds like that. So you want to find something that's different that you can say, this is what we like.
yeah.
All of those different things. Yeah. But I find that's more so there than here.
Really,
And that used to be the main thing in a lot of the college radio, but even that I think has tamped down some. It's not as prevalent. I don't hear that rationale given
I think there's
like I used to.
I think there's two types of people. There's people that are very precious about what they listen to. I will say I
Mhm.
100% fit into that realm where you've got things you listen to, and as long as not everyone else is listening to it, you are happy. And
Right.
because it's like I don't know, it's a strange thing. And then you've got folks that just follow whatever is the latest thing. And I mean, I think when I hit around 14, 15 was when I was more like, whatever anyone else was listening to, I was just going to be like, I'm going to listen to the opposite. And I always wanted to explore. That was just, I was always curious for something that was just different.
No, I understand perfectly. I understand perfectly. Um, I always like to discover new things, though it has narrowed some, and
Yeah.
probably because at least here
Yeah.
there's so much of the same that
Okay.
to me it gets to be boring. Because maybe because of my musical background.
Mm.
It's too simplistic. The message is everybody's copying everybody else.
Yeah.
So it's not as interesting to me. So I listen to some of the older stuff.
Sorry, Brad, Bradley, come out. He just barges in. We shut the door. Are you familiar with Flying Lotus?
No.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to say he's someone that I've heard of over the years, and then he's got a lot of kudos. His I think his grandmother was what's her name? Oh,
Was she in the business?
Alice Coltrane.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't know how he ended up going into music, but I think he started out making kind of, hip hop and glitchy hip hop. But there's a recent composition which is of his on YouTube, and I've heard a lot of really complicated music that is just super complex, and there's a lot of changes going on, and a lot of shifts in mood and stuff going. Can transform from quite menacing to quite uplifting within an entire trip piece, and the rest of it, and different motives and different tempos, shifts, and all sorts of crazy. This even now, even after 30 odd years of listening to music, I was really, really, really impressed. So it was interesting when you said that. That was what sprung to mind. And
He's got a musical pedigree.
yeah, absolutely. If you Google Flying Lotus, you'll see this piece. And I think he's used stop motion animation to put it together. And I watched it from start to finish, and yeah, I was even after all these years, I was musically. There's a lot going on. There's some kind of chick career type crazy pianos and changing of big shifts of mood, and it's just there's so much going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, yeah, I think things. It's exciting when you see stuff like that. In short, so,
Oh, definitely, definitely.
so yeah, yeah. I think there was something else I was going to mention, but I forgot what it was. I think that's pretty much it for the moment. I think we've talked a lot. We could go on for a lot longer. That's definite. Um, but I think maybe we could just sort of say, like, in terms of the future and stuff. We've got like 5 minutes on this thing, so in terms of the future, what's the sort of division? You're going to go back to these old tapes and then think about what you.
Well, yeah, we're gonna have to listen to them and see if there's something that.
Yeah.
See if we get inspired by something. You know, obviously,
Yeah.
those ideas were. We were inspired to at least start something, you know.
Yeah.
It may not have gone in the direction we wanted to ultimately go, but this is, 40, 50 years later. So you never know, you know.
Yeah.
Not everything that we recorded necessarily made it on an album. So some things are fairly complete that might not have been made. I mean, that didn't make it, or now with the hearing and what's going on in the business now, we may have a whole different approach to what that was doing. So we're looking at it as possible inspiration on some things.
Yeah.
You know, that it could inspire some things. You know?
Okay. Who knows? Maybe it will come out or something, or you'll think about doing it or something, or putting it, or.
Yeah, never. One of the things I was thinking about with is this the future, was incorporating the message into it as well.
Yeah.
For Melina. in the breaks, because I had my nephew do that.
Yeah.
With the turntable, and it works. The record company is a little concerned about the performance aspect of it in terms of Sugarhill. We don't know what's going on with that right now.
Yeah.
But it might be something that happens.
Okay, that sounds wicked. That sounds awesome. Yeah. So that would be like an old tune mixed with another tune or something. Is that?
In other words, well, there are spaces in is this the future where that rap could go on top of it? Parts of the rap, not the whole thing, you know.
Yeah.
At least, but never. I keep it in mind that if we interact with some of their people and maybe pitch the idea, a deal could be worked out that would be that would accommodate both sides.
That sounds blessed. I didn't even know Sugarhill was still about. I thought
I don't think it is, because Sylvia and Joe are gone, and I think I'm not sure if both sons are still alive. I know one, I think, passed away, so we don't know what's happening or who's handling that at this point. So the label was, Ace was a little nervous about that one, which I can understand.
Really? But, okay, well, if they don't want it.
Yeah, because sometimes people will lay in the cut. They won't say anything.
People don't want it.
That's
hold my hand up.
It's like, I'll tell you a perfect example. Chaka Khan and Like Sugar.
Yeah.
Now, that record was, Bill heard about that record maybe 6, 7 years ago on YouTube.
Right.
Couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
The girl that was singing it,
Yeah.
they took it to Chaka.
Okay.
Nothing's changed.
Right.
There's a sample of Bus Stop in there.
Oh,
We,
yeah,
we
yeah,
could
right.
we couldn't prove it, but it's in there.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. You're right. That, now I know. Now I was thinking,
And it was funny because we did a show with Chaka I think it was last year at the
it's the riff. It's do 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 do.
right.
Yeah, yeah. That's definitely.
And our bass player, original bass player, Flip, came over because he knew we were doing this show with Chaka. And I kept trying to tell him, Flip, Chaka had no idea where that particular song came from.
Oh, interesting.
You know, so be careful how you approach it because I don't think she knew. I'm pretty sure she didn't know.
Yeah.
You know that this was Bus Stop. You know, but anyway.
Right. So we've literally got 1 minute left. So I just want to say, awesome. That's like the biggest interview we've done here on this channel. Thank you so much for Gerry Thomas. Thank you for him for being ridiculously patient with me, even for all my technical issues here, the works, everything under the sun. Thank you very much, Gerry. Like ridiculously enjoyable conversation. So thank you so much.
He's a person that has his own technical issues frequently. I totally understand. And it was really a pleasure. Anytime you want to do it again, just let me know.
Thanks, Gerry. Cheers.
All right, you take care. Happy Father's Day.
Thank you.